The time it takes now to fill up a tank with gas is nothing compared to the time it took to fill a tank of gas in 1973. With a worldwide oil crisis going on, gas lines were astronomically large, and it was
87.
almost impossible to get in on your time. Hope you enjoyed this documentary about gas from the past. In 1973, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC, curtailed oil from countries like the United States and the Netherlands for their involvement in the Arab-Israeli, or Yom Kippur War, and lowered all oil production. This caused the world to go into a panicked oil crisis. Happening in the height of the Cold War era, two of the biggest world powers, the US and the Soviet Union, went into further distress, creating massive political tensions as those allied with curtailed countries were under stress from OPEC. It caused diplomatic relations to fall apart as many countries had to look elsewhere for oil natively. The oil crisis caused gas prices to skyrocket, energy bills to climb, and infrastructure to adapt in the name of efficiency. Stagflation started to grow larger as those working in the gas and plastic industries started to lose jobs, which started to inflate the economic downturn. But to understand why the economic stresses were able to get to this boiling point, we need to first understand the conflict in the Middle East. In 1947, the United Nations General Assembly created a committee called the UN Special Committee on Palestine. Its goal was to create recommendations as to how the land given away by Great Britain should be given to the governments in the area. A separate Jewish state and an Arab state plan was created. In November of 1947, the UN came together to vote on this partition plan, as it was dubbed. The Jewish were for the plan, while the Arabs were against it. They decided to launch a war against Israel, who shortly thereafter declared independence. The fourth of these such wars was nicknamed the Yom Kippur War. Both sides were at a stalemate when the holiday of Yom Kippur came. This is historically the most holy holiday in the Jewish religion. Most of the Israeli soldiers were at home or at the temple, not worrying about the war when the Arabs attacked. This was the biggest surprise attack in the war, but Israel was able to use their knowledge of the land to push the Arab army back into Syria. The allies of Israel that took action and helped in the war efforts were the ones that but a few months later were embargoed from Middle East oil. Those countries included the United States, the Netherlands, South Africa, Portugal, and Rhodesia. This included the entire ceasement of oil shipments to these countries. These countries were forewarned by the Arab government that if they helped Israel, they would be punished. But the US, being in the midst of the Watergate scandal, didn't take enough caution. Along with this ban, OPEC had a series of production cuts, sending the entire world into the 1973 oil crisis, causing oil prices to surge as gas prices shot from around $2 to over $11.60. With countries in distress, political tensions rose as countries had to decide whether or not to cut ties with those embargoed. The Saudi Arabian oil minister was threatening to decrease the production further to 20 and 30%. To those in control of oil, a lower production rate would drive up prices, creating larger and larger profit margins. With demand being what it was for oil, they would never lose their share in the 1973 market. A larger decrease in production would increase the longevity of stagflation, meaning families would struggle keeping up with increased prices of petroleum with their current incomes. The oil minister also pointed out the numerous safety measures that kept the US and all other countries from invading these Arabian oil fields. The U.S. blowing up the oil fields would cause all countries to fall into a larger economic crisis, causing what could have started the Second Great Depression. With the loss of energy, nobody would be able to work, cook food. The only food in stores would be food that is shelf-stable. And even then, food supply would run low as companies couldn't produce to meet the demand. Saudi Arabia had also set a series of bombs to go off if any country invaded and gained control over the oil supply in a way to say, if I can't have it, nobody can. As you might expect, a worldwide oil and energy crisis might cause some changes to occur in the way people live and interact with the environment. In the Netherlands, they made the necessary changes to live in a less gas-intensive environment. They overhauled the street systems, making them slightly less convenient for automobiles, while still keeping them very efficient and adding efficiency for bikes. If you go to the Netherlands today, around 80% of people ride to their destination on a bike every single day. They made gas not as big of a problem, so now, since demand is low, their gas prices are over $8 a gallon. In the US, we did the exact opposite. Instead of getting rid of gas, we made it more efficient to travel. We built highly efficient interstate systems and focused our energy on creating more efficient cars so you could drive further for less. The entire car market in America turned to more aerodynamic cars, and today we still see the effects. We see an intercontinental highway where we can drive at 75 miles per hour with no interruptions. We see people going out and doing things like the Cannonball Run, driving across the United States from New York to Los Angeles in 25 hours. This is all because of one war 50 years ago on the other side of the planet.